On today's episode of Locked On Mariners, Prospect Week continues with prospects 20 through 11 in the Mariners farm system. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Wednesday, February 1st, 2023. This is Tyler Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description below. On the show today, we'll be continuing our re-rank of the Mariners farm system with prospects 20 through 11. We did 30 through 21 yesterday, so if you haven't checked that out yet, do it. Also, yes, our number 22 prospect, JB Bukauskas, was DFA'd yesterday, but we will wait to see if he sticks with the organization or not before amending our list. But yeah, that was the timing of that was
comical.
Yeah, indeed. Quick reminder of how this list works. Colby and I both put together individual prospect rankings and combined the two lists using a points-based system to create the list you'll see today. You'll also see our individual rankings for each player we talk about. And again, this is all based on, reading reports, watching video, etc., and crafting our opinion from that. We do not see these guys on a regular basis, and we are not claiming to be experts. Well, maybe Colby is. But let's get into this list. Colby, I think we're starting here with maybe our most controversial ranking of this entire list, because people really like Tyler Locklear. We're a bit lower on him, though. He comes in at number 20 on our list. The second round pick of this past draft for the Mariners. Had a really nice year, but there's some bat speed concerns that we'll get into, that I'm sure we'll get into. You had him ranked 21 in your individual list. I had him ranked 18. So, yeah, what are some of the concerns here with Tyler Locklear that drives him down our list?
Right. Well, you mentioned the big one is bat speed. It's a little tough to get an accurate answer on what his bat speed is. And while you can be a pretty productive major league hitter, which is kind of average bat speed, like Ty France, for example, to be a big time power hitter, which is kind of Locklear's calling card, you usually need plus bat speed, or at least above average bat speed. And we just can't get a straight answer on that. So I don't really know. He was also drafted out of a mid-major college. He's not facing elite competition in his college days. And then he goes and he performs pretty well in A-ball, but he's also 23, 24 years old. So we haven't seen him yet against, major league quality stuff, at least not that often. And I have questions about the bat speed. And in addition to that, because he's first base only, like there is no shot he plays anywhere but first base or DH. He has to hit. And if that's your profile, you're first base only. And I have questions about whether or not you can hit and hit for power when power is your calling card. You're going to be down lower in my ranks than maybe some other people. If I had, a good idea on the bat speed, if I saw him against some really good, high quality prospects, and just high quality pitching, then I would feel better about ranking him. But he's probably never going to touch my top 10 just because he's first base only. So he has to hit, and he has to hit pretty big to justify a rank as high as some people have him. And I'm not sure if he's that guy yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for him. I mean, we're going to say this a lot for a lot of these guys because, I mean, you put it pretty well when we were recording our Patreon show yesterday that a lot of these guys are kind of fighting for relevance. And maybe Locklear isn't necessarily doing that. He's a second-round pick, of course, so there's a bit more leash for guys like him. But it's definitely going to be a big year in determining whether or not he's just kind of another, first base DH type of dude or he's special. And there's a lot of people out there that think that he is special. Now, you summed up my thoughts pretty well overall on Locklear and why he's low on our list. But before we move off of him, quick little bit of trivia for you. Tyler Locklear shares the same alma mater as which prominent figure in the Mariners organization, Colby?
Well, he went to VCU, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a player or a coach? I feel like it's a coach.
I'll say this: he's a friend of the show.
Jerry DiPoto?
Jerry DiPoto went to VCU.
He went to VCU. Okay.
He went
I
to
thought he was a
VCU.
California guy. Okay.
There you go.
All right, well, there you go.
All right.
By the way, hold
Mhm.
on real fast.
Mhm.
If you have Locklear like near your top 10, like fine, whatever.
Sure.
But you should probably also then have Perez around 10 because they're very similar players at this stage of their career. So why the special treatment for Locklear? Just saying.
I saw someone rank Tyler Locklear as high as 4.
That's
in
ridiculous.
in their 2023 rankings.
That
Number 4.
To be polite, that's dumb.
All right, let's move on here in our list. We got a tie. The first of 2 ties today. At number 18 on our list. This is an interesting one that we talked a little bit about on our Patreon show yesterday, patreon.com/control the zone. Couple of outfielders here that are fairly similar, but they're far apart in terms of timeline. Cade Marlowe, who should be at least somewhat of a factor this year. And then Jonatan Clase, who is, and I just realized that I spelled his name as Jonathan on this graphic. That's that's my bad on me. There's no H in the name there. So ignore that, folks. That's what we call in the industry a big oopsie. But yeah, Jonatan Clase, Cade Marlowe. You had Marlowe higher than Clase in your rankings. You had Marlowe 17 and Clase 18. I had Marlowe 20 and Clase 19. This one could really go either way, and it really depends on how much stock you're putting into the strikeouts on Marlowe and how much stock you're putting into the fact that Clase has more time to figure it out, even though that he also has similar warts in his game.
Yeah. This is one that, I went back and forth on this. I don't feel like I'm a big Cade Marlowe guy. Like, I know there are some that are really high on him, and I don't feel like I am, but every time, I look to move him down the ranks, I'm like, no, because he does this well and he still does this well. And so, yeah, really the only thing with Marlowe is the strikeouts. And it's a big thing. Don't get me wrong. If it wasn't, then he would be top 10, more or less. Because he does have some over the wall power. He does have gap power. He can steal some bags for you. And, you probably don't love him in center field, but he's more than capable of playing there, and he can play all 3 outfield spots. The numbers that he put up, minus the strikeouts, were, hard to ignore. And Jerry DiPoto himself has called Marlowe a 5-tool player. So now GMs always pump up their own guy, but still.
He's called quite a few guys a 5-tool player in the past.
Dylan Moore. But so, yeah, and honestly, if Marlowe keeps striking out like this, his ceiling might be outfield Dylan Moore.
By the way, I love how we're doing a prospect list and Dylan Moore is still catching strays.
Sure, of course,
yeah.
of course. Yeah. Well, I didn't get to comp Josh Hood to Dylan Moore, so I had to throw him in here somehow.
I thought you did that during our honorable mention part.
Yeah,
of the
I probably
show yesterday.
did, but whatever.
Anyways,
yeah, if Marlowe doesn't figure out the strikeouts, and he could be, outfield Dylan Moore essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it's kind of a similar profile. But yeah, I think Marlowe's closeness to the big leagues, the power that's already there, and I guess I'm just kind of counting on the strikeouts to go down a little bit, but it's a coin flip, man, because Clase has got tremendous speed. He's actually got some pop. He's a good defender out in center. Like, there's a lot to like with Clase. So, yeah, it really is a coin flip. I don't know. I just feel like Marlowe's proximity to the big leagues and likelihood to be a contributor of some kind is just a little bit higher than Clase's right now.
It still is just like, and don't get me wrong, I know that I'm kind of contradicting myself here when I call Marlowe a question mark, because there's no bigger question mark than someone like a Jonatan Clase, right? But the fact that he is 25 years old, how like, is he just beating up on younger competition, or is he actually, or is that bat actually going to be able to translate? Because that's really the big deal. I think he's going to be able to contribute on the base pass and defensively for sure at the major league level. It's really just about that bat playing up. And I'm concerned that he's going to end up, if he's striking out 30% of the time in Double-A, that he's going to end up striking out 38% of the time at the major league level. And that's not playable. That's just not playable whatsoever. Unless he's unless he's like also simultaneously walking like 15% of the time, then maybe you can eat it. But yeah.
I mean, Dylan Moore strikes out a lot, and you still love to throw his WRC plus in my face. So clearly it doesn't matter.
I the listeners, the comments section, Colby, not me, obviously.
Right. You would never do that.
I would never stoop to the level of just using WRC plus to make my argument. Never. Sure. I would never do
that. Yeah. Good news here is we kind of wrap up this debate is we're going to get to see Marlo a lot in spring. Teoscar's off to the WBC and so is Julio. And we imagine that team's going to make a pretty deep run at this thing. So you're probably going to get to see Marlo, play a lot for 10 to 15 days there. So, we'll see what Marlo has. And Clase will also be in camp as a member of the 40 man. So, I don't imagine he'll stick around as long as Marlo, but we should get to see at least Marlo in pretty serious or significant number of at-bats. Not that it's worth all that much, but you'll get to put eyes on him, which will be nice.
Indeed. All right. So we got quite a few more prospects to go over here in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, and if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. And right now, a score in the first minute of the Super Bowl sits at plus 4,000. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Let's get back into these prospects with number 17 on our list, right-handed pitcher Michael Morales. You had him at number 19, Colby. I had him right here at number 17. So tell me a little bit about Morales, why you were a little lower on him than I was.
Yeah, third-round pick a couple years back, was a Vanderbilt commit. Vanderbilt, probably the premier college baseball program in the country. So Seattle had to go a little bit over slot. There's a lot of projectability here. He's kind of a tall, thin kid right now. But there is a lot of polish here for, a 19, 20-year-old. It's not typical of what we see. Typically you see a high school kid getting drafted. It's all about, what he could be. And Morales certainly has some upside. I'm not saying he doesn't, but Morales has his ability to throw strikes. He's 92, 93-ish with the fastball. He's got some pretty acceptable breaking pitches off-speed pitches for his age. And it's just kind of a matter of, can we get more out of the fastball and turn this guy into a mid-rotation starter? Because I think his floor obviously is he never touches the big leagues, but like assuming he makes it to the big leagues, I would say his floor is probably as a number 5 starter, right? I mean, he throws enough strikes, he has enough command. The changeup has a chance to be really good, I think. And so I think there's a chance that there's a chance that he's 93 to 95 with a good changeup and, a workable breaking ball or two. That's a number 5 because he's going to throw strikes. But until I see the velocity jump, he's just kind of a number 5 starter who's a few years away from the big leagues, and that's not going to carry him that far up on these ranks. I like him. I think that he's exactly the type of guy the Mariners should take shots on, and I'm glad they did. But he's a couple years away, and right now, until I see something with the fastball, he's just a number 5 / middle relief type to me.
Totally get it. Totally understand. I'm projecting a bit here, putting him at number 17. I think that the fastball is going to tick up a little bit because he's still so young and he still has to develop a little bit. I think there's a real shot here at 4 legitimate pitches in his arsenal. So if he can get there, and that's the big if, right? That's a big if with all of these guys at the end of the day. But if he can get there, especially with the fastball, if he can get value out of the fastball, I'm really excited about Morales' future. So I'm still going to put him here pretty firmly in the top 20. But he's one guy that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on for sure this year. All right, moving on to number 16, Prelander Berroa. And you and I were both in agreement here. Number 16 in both of our lists. So he lands at number 16 in the master list. This is a guy that he has really exciting stuff. They got him for virtually nothing for a couple of months of Donovan Walton, essentially from the Giants.
Chills.
And chills, yeah. Dipoto
play
did
it,
again.
Ty. Play it.
I'm too lazy to edit, especially after.
You're gonna put that in the video clip thing. We could just play it whenever.
Oh yeah, we should do that. Yeah, but Restream is so weird about that stuff. It always lags. Like we'll click it and then it'll wait for 2 seconds, and then there's the awkward. Yeah, it's not quick like that. If anyone out there is interested in producing our show for us for very little amount of money,
coming directly from Ty's pocket, by the way.
Yeah. Let us know. Anyway, Prelander Berroa, again, a lot of exciting stuff here, but he's just one of those guys that can't find the strike zone. I'm looking at him exclusively as a reliever now, especially now that he's been added to the 40-man roster. That's his clearest path to making the big leagues in Seattle. And I think that he could make an impact out of the bullpen. But again, is he Gerson Bautista? Is he Thiago Vieira? Because he can throw really hard, but he can't find the strike zone. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's the whole ball game right there. We're talking about 2+ pitches. The fastball and the slider are both excellent swing and miss pitches, but they don't really do anything if you're behind 3-1 on every single batter. Right. And now you've got to groove a fastball, or you got to put something in the middle of the plate or walk the guy. Like, it's not that valuable. So I have legitimate questions about whether or not Prelander Berroa's stuff even matters until we see at least 45 control, not even command. The guy he works a lot of deep counts. That's why I don't think he has really any shot of being a starter. He doesn't really have a third pitch, although the changeup has flashed at times. And that's fine if you're a reliever. It's just, I prefer my relievers to throw strikes, right? And we're not even at the point yet where I feel like it's Matt Brash, where Brash struggles to throw strikes, but he throws enough strikes that you still trust him. Mm-hmm. I'm not there yet with Barroa. I mean, he's got to throw more strikes, plain and simple. And until he does, I don't really care what the fastball and slider look like, because until you can control the strike zone even a little bit, you're not a major league pitcher. So what's the point? So we'll see what he can do this year. I do think that he probably comes up at some point and pitches out of the bullpen. And if he is even just if he can just get to Matt Brash levels of control and command, that's a potential high leverage arm. I mean, we are talking about potentially 2 legitimate 70 grade pitches in the fastball and slider. So there's plenty of upside here, even out of the bullpen. But until I see, any ability to throw strikes and throw them where you want it, I feel like this is as high as I can go. I really think Barroa is probably the most overrated prospect. I saw some ranks that have him as high as 5, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, you and I too historically have been kind of anti-reliever when it comes to prospect ranks. Like we rank them as pretty much as low as you justifiably can.
Yeah.
And we've always been like that because I think maybe part of it is being scarred from the Jack Z era that leaked over into the the first few years of the Dipoto era.
5 of the top 10 were all relievers only.
Yeah, Seth Elledge was number 6 in the Mariners farm system. So maybe it's part of that, but yeah.
Dark days.
So yeah, we're probably a lot lower on Barroa than most people, but again, it's just, can you find the strike zone consistently? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing, because again, if he can't, then he's Johan Ramirez. And that's, RIP.
Don't you dare. Johan forever.
Johan forever, absolutely. All right, moving on here. Number 15, another guy that we were in total agreement here. Both had him at 15, so he lands at 15 on the master list. Isaiah Campbell, who is healthy now. He dominated this past year in the minors, and we've said multiple times on the show we think is going to make an impact out of the bullpen in 2023 for the Major League club here. So tell me why you like Campbell so much and why he's at number 15 on our list.
Yeah, Campbell's a guy I liked when they drafted him back out of Arkansas. I remember watching him pitch in the College World Series, and he dominated, I believe it was TCU. And back then he was, 55 control, 50 command, fastball, really good split change. Slider was kind of, and then unfortunately injuries and the shutdown year kind of derailed his ability to start. And now he's an older guy. But last year they put him in the bullpen full time, and he was just lights out. I mean, we're talking, let me see my notes here, 98 miles an hour with the fastball. Plus a really good slider. The slider appears to maybe have leapfrogged the changeup a little bit.
Yeah.
But there still is the changeup there. So there are 3 legit pitches. We'll see how much he throws it. He didn't throw the changeup much last year at all. But there are 3 legitimate pitches. The control is still there. The command is still there. So this is a guy who, has a starter's like arsenal, but is pitching out of the bullpen. He can go a couple innings here and there. And here's a fun note that I read in friend of the show, Joe Doyle's prospect rankings. Campbell's fastball generated a 48% whiff rate.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
1 out of every 2 fastballs that were swung at were missed.
That's insane.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So there's more to it than just velocity. I really think that this guy, I think obviously he's a mid reliever at the very least, but I really do think that there's high leverage upside here. And because I'm looking at Prelander Berroa as just a reliever and Campbell is just a reliever, I think Campbell's a better reliever right now because he has a higher floor. He has a higher floor certainly than Barroa. And honestly, I think the ceiling's kind of similar. So I don't get the wide discrepancy between Barroa and Campbell that I've seen in other ranks.
Yeah, I think Campbell can at least be Penn Murphy this year.
Oh, I think that's his floor.
Yeah. Like I think there's a pretty high ceiling here for Campbell as a reliever right away, right out of the gate. I'm really excited about whenever he gets the opportunity to make his major league debut, because I don't think that he's ever leaving the major leagues after he gets there. There's some really nice stuff there with Campbell. But again, we can only rank him at 15 because of just how we are with
a reliever.
With relievers. Now, there's one more guy here that we're going to be talking about in just a second that has more of a reliever profile that I ranked higher. And we'll get into that here. I don't know if that's now or in a bit. No, it is now. All right, so tied at number 13 for us. This is another interesting debate that we had on our Patreon show yesterday. Taylor Dollard versus AJ Izzy, who was recently drafted by the Mariners this past year out of the prep circuit. So you had Dollard at 13. I had him at 14. You had Izzy at 14. I have Izzy at 13. So let's start here with Dollard, because thinking back on it, because I'm just going to be honest about it, I didn't consciously put Izzy over Dollard, in that respect, having them kind of square off 1v1 essentially. But looking back on it, Dollard to me is if he hits his ceiling, I still think that he's only a number 4. Yeah. And I think the most likely outcome here, because he's not getting a ton of value out of the fastball, is that he's a mid-leverage reliever. But I want to hear your argument here on Dollard.
Yeah, so Dollard's a guy who right now has, I would say, 1+ pitch, 1 above average pitch, and it's the slider, and it's a pretty good one.
Yep.
And the rest of the stuff is pretty average to mediocre, somewhere in that range, but he gets away with it because his control and command is plus. He throws a ton of strikes. He knows how to pitch. He's kind of a cerebral pitcher who can work through a lineup multiple times. And it's not like the fastball is 84 miles an hour, right? It's 91, 92. But there's just not a lot to it. And he's really just, getting by on the slider and a lot of control and command and kind of working through the lineup in his head. So he's a very cerebral pitcher. I think he has a very high floor as a result. I think he's a number 5 and at worst. And if you want to ask, well, can his stuff play up in a middle relief role, then it's worth having the conversation about putting him in the bullpen, because the difference of value between a number 5 starter and like a 7th inning type of arm, eh. But because I feel really confident that Dollard can start and get big league hitters out, and he can go 5, 6, 7 innings, give you quality starts with the way the stuff is right now, I think that gives him the edge over Izzy, who hasn't pitched yet. It's a little
Yeah.
tough to see what that stuff is. Izzy certainly has a higher upside,
Yeah.
but Izzy also has a floor of nothing, whereas Dollard's floor is major leaguer.
Sure.
So yeah, that's the reason I went Dollard over Izzy. I like Izzy, but he hasn't pitched. I have nothing to
Yeah.
go off of yet, and Dollard is going to make the big leagues at some point this year, and probably get big league hitters out with. I mean, even the worst pitchers get big league hitters out with regularity, but
Yeah.
he's going to be. I have no doubt that he's going to be Chris Flex and Marco Gonzalez for the next 7 to 10 years.
I just also kind of wonder if he ends up being Matt Whistler.
It's possible, but you know what Matt Whistler is that AJ Izzy isn't? A professional pitcher.
That's true.
We haven't seen Izzy pitch.
That's true. I mean, look, I clearly have a type here, right? I like the projectability guys. I like that stuff. He's 6'3", he's a $175, and he's already touching mid-90s. I mean, this is why I almost put Kendall Meza in my top 30 here, because like I love that stuff. I love the ball of clay, right? That you can just mold and see what you have here, because I think this is a guy that could end up pushing, upper 90s consistently in a high leverage bullpen role with that splitter as well. It's exciting, man. That's exciting. But again, it's a lot of projection. It's all projection at this point, because he's only pitched at prep levels. So
yeah, that splitter, man, that's a tough pitch to master. It really is. And so if that's your best secondary pitch, I'm a little like not that you can't do it. Obviously, there are a lot of big leaguers who have a good splitter and they make that work, but
yeah,
a lot is like 5 to 7% of Major League Baseball. Is he one of those guys? I don't know, but he does have a really whippy arm. And he, like you said, he's 6'3", 175. He's got room to put on 20, 30, 40 pounds and still maintain his athleticism. And the fastball is obviously plus, but I just don't know about the secondary stuff. And again, I haven't seen him pitch. So until we start seeing that, I don't really know what to do with Izzy. I'm kind of going off of his draft profile, which was very nice. And so, yeah, Izzy is a guy who can make a huge jump. And I mean, I guess not huge because he's already 14 for me. So I guess not a huge jump, but he can make a jump into the top 10, even with all the talent flooding into the system, but he's probably going to spend most of the year at the complex league.
Yeah. I think part of that too, if he can make a jump, it's going to be if he's actually more than a reliever, if they actually want to give it a shot for him as a starter. So we'll see. I think he's going
a shot.
Yeah, I think he's going to quickly end up in the bullpen though, because depending on how loud the stuff gets, or how quickly and loud the stuff gets. So we'll see. All right, number 12 on our list, another guy that we were in agreement with. Both had him number 12 on our respective list. So he's number 12 here. Juan Pinto, left-handed pitcher who hasn't pitched above the Dominican Summer League. You are the face of the Juan Pinto fan club here, so I'm gonna give you the floor, Colby, because I mean I don't think I've ever seen anyone as high on Juan Pinto as you, and you sold me on him, so I want you to give our listener here that same sales pitch, essentially.
For the record, I believe Jason Churchill of Baseball Things still has Pinto ranked higher than I do.
Oh, there you
Jason
go.
hasn't released his ranks yet, so I don't know, but he's actually a big fan here. Pinto.
Joe's not a huge fan, by the way.
No,
Joe had him at 24 in his list. So yeah.
Yeah, I know it's weird. But Pinto 6'3". He's already put on quite a bit of weight, which is good because when he signed it was 6'3", like 165. Lefty, fastball is 91 to 93. And the curveball, it's a big bender, and it just kind of reminds me a little bit of Barry Zito. And so, did I happen to love watching Barry Zito pitch when I was younger? Yes. Did that factor into this ranking?
Yeah, see, that's
No.
where you pulled on my heartstrings a little bit here on the
Who
sales
doesn't like
pitch.
Barry
I
Zito?
heard the name Barry Zito, and I was like, oh, now I'm interested. Now you have my attention as you take that big swig of water.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, yeah. So, Pinto is essentially Barry Zito. That's exactly what you just said.
Okay.
But yeah, why else do you like him?
This one, it really is all about projection right now, because in the summer league, he really struggled with walks, but he's so athletic that I really don't think that's a long-term thing for him. So we're talking about a guy who at 16, 17 years old, 2+ pitches, give or take, and a pretty good athlete. So I'm projecting here. I've liked Pinto for a while here. There's just something about, curveball, left-handed curveball and 92 to 93 up in the zone that I just think plays really well. So it's a lot of projection, a lot of athleticism, but I still think he has room to get even stronger. And I think he's going to figure out his control, because he's a pretty good athlete, for too good of an athlete to be a guy who's walking almost one batter per inning like he did this last year.
Yeah. Number 11, our last prospect for the day, and then we'll be getting into our top 10 on Friday, rather. Number 11 here, Lazarito Montes, Montes, who crushed it down in the DSL, but also struck out a lot. We'll get into that a little bit. Obviously, the comps on him, Yordan Alvarez, etc. Let's calm down here, folks. Let's at least see him stateside first before we start talking about that. But this is a really interesting profile, right? Because we've talked about the guys that are essentially first base DH types. They've tried it with him in the outfield. I believe Joe mentioned in his prospect ranks that they initially said that he could play center field, then he didn't play center field at all last year, and he ended up playing exclusively right field. When he wasn't DHing. I think he ends up being a first base / DH type. I have him here listed as a first base / outfielder for now. But there isn't really much that you're getting defensively. It's all comes down to the bat. And while it's a loud stick that he's carrying there's a quite hole in it as well. So what do you think about Laz Montes?
He's interesting. Obviously, we have him ranked 11, but he struck out 33% of the time last year as a bat first prospect in the DSL. That's not great. So I think he's probably pretty likely to repeat that level, which is not a good sign. It's not a bad sign, but it's not great for a guy who you were expecting to kind of move on an accelerated timeline. But the raw power is certainly there, and even the in-game power we saw, in pieces. But like you said, he's no longer an up the middle guy. He probably never was, but now he's probably not even an outfield guy. He's probably first base DH. And like we said with Locklear, that means you have to hit. There is no, oh, well, if he's an average bat, it doesn't play at first base. You can't be an average bat and play first base. That's why, for example, no matter how good of defense Evan White gives you at first base, he's got to be at least above average bat. So with that lack of versatility, we're starting to get to a point where we have a very narrow path to the big leagues, which is a problem with me, or for me, when I do these ranks. I want guys who have multiple avenues to get to the big leagues. And Montes, he has to hit. Now, thankfully, he's so young and he's so talented that I don't think anybody should be worried yet. There's no reason to panic or anything like that, but he's got to start to make more consistent contact, and he's got to take advantage of that hit tool that he has, and it's got to start this year. Like I said, he's still so young that even if this year is kind of middling, I wouldn't panic. But last year was enough that I don't consider him one of the Mariners' elite prospects, and I think last year a lot of people assumed he would be when he signed.
Yeah, he's really interesting, and obviously was the prize of not this past international signing period, but the one before that.
Right.
So there's quite a lot riding on him, quite a lot of expectations riding on him here. Didn't he get like a $3.5 million signing bonus, something like that?
2.7, I think.
2.7, yeah, which is still pretty hefty. Not 3.5 hefty, but still pretty hefty.
Pretty sure that was the largest payment Seattle made until they signed Celestin.
Really?
Yeah, because I think Julio got like 2.5 and Noelvi got like 2.3 or something like that.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure before this last international class, Montes was the guy the Mariners threw the most money at.
Crazy. Well, all right. That's all the time we have for today's episode, but thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen. Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you on Friday. Peace.